everybody, it's Callie and I am back today with another reaction video. If you hear a lot of like noises happening, some miscellaneous sounds in the background, I think everybody in my neighborhood is mowing their lawn right now, like right at this second, or they're getting their garbage picked up. Just ignore that. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, in previous videos, I know I've kind of talked a little bit about how the rise of social media has pretty much given everybody a platform to talk about whatever they want, and included in that would be mental health on the broader spectrum, and then more specifically OCD or other disorders that they might be experiencing or diagnosed with or whatever. The caveat to that is that although everybody can talk about it, it doesn't mean that everybody is representing it in a way that is factual or accurate. So we're going to look at some examples today. So I went ahead and pulled some TikToks really quickly that I thought might be good to look at. So we'll see if they're accurate, if they make sense, if they're really not a very good representation of what OCD is. So yeah, let's just get started. Okay, so the first TikTok that I have pulled up looks like it is a snippet of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where someone is kind of demonstrating their OCD. So let's see how this goes.
2, 3. Good night, honey. Good night, Mac. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes?
Why are you doing everything in threes?
Oh, so Charlie doesn't die.
What?
Okay, so to say that that is like the most accurate depiction of OCD that I've ever seen, that's a tall claim, but like that's a pretty good, in my humble opinion, I think that that's a pretty good representation of what OCD can look like, both for the person that is doing the compulsions and then anybody that is kind of an onlooker watching this unfurl. I know that there's kind of like a comedy element and, you know, the way she's like, oh, well, I have to do it so he doesn't die. But I don't really think that that's very far off too, because especially somebody who's just like been doing this for so long, it's just like, oh, well, it's just another part of my day. Somebody that knows me knows what I'm going through with OCD. I think they might see me kind of go off on some kind of loop where I'm really not present, and they'll ask me like, are you okay? What's going on? And I'm like, oh no, nothing. I was just thinking like, you know, did I hit somebody in the car on the way here? And I'll just like very nonchalantly like say that because it's like, oh, well, it is what it is. Like, you know, it's part of the game, I guess. So I don't know that that's necessarily an inaccurate representation. I think, of course, simplifies it and dulls it down because there's no evidence of like distress behind that, but just because she's not showing it outwardly doesn't mean that she wouldn't be feeling it inside if she were really, you know, having some kind of intrusive thought or compulsive type behavior. A lot of us, I think, have gotten really good at kind of masking that behavior when we're out and about because we're constantly under like a barrage of all these different thoughts. So I think that that's probably pretty accurate. I feel like you already know what I'm gonna say about this one. Yeah, I think that one is a lot harder to be as enthusiastic about and say, yeah, that's a really good representation, because I think a lot of us who struggle kind of know that that's not necessarily the case for us. You know, our OCD doesn't look like that. I'm not saying that this person, I don't know, they could be diagnosed. This could be a symptom for them. I don't know that that's really, I think it's kind of very stereotypical when we're talking about like, oh, tell me you have OCD without telling me you have OCD, and it's something like that. So, I mean, I'm, again, a little bit less enthusiastic about that being an accurate representation of what OCD is like. Of course, OCD comes in all shapes and sizes, as we know. So, yeah, it's just trying, I think, to really move away from that idea that OCD is just being neat or orderly or clean without understanding the distress that comes along with wanting that order or wanting that perfection or cleanliness. I think that's really the main issue with a lot of these types of videos. This one I'm gonna have to pause to read. Okay. OCD is cruel because it once convinced me that I was a pedophile, that I was a predator, that I have acted on the intrusive thoughts and forgotten about it, or a false memory, that I couldn't be trusted to be around children, that I was a monster. It made me avoid anything to do with children. I would have panic attacks just looking at a child. OCD convinced me I had groinal responses to intrusive thoughts that caused unimaginable distress. Hours and hours of rumination and intense anxiety each day. I hated myself and wanted to turn myself into the police. I didn't want to exist. OCD is cruel because OCD was lying. OCD is ego dystonic and goes against your morals and values. It shows you your worst fear and makes it feel real. No notes. Like, no notes on that. Because I think that perfectly sums up what the experience is for a lot of people. It talks about things that aren't usually talked about, like groinal responses, or just the intensity of what these kinds of obsessions can be like. And also to say that OCD is ego dystonic and goes against your morals and values. I feel like a lot of us know that, and we know that part of why so much of the distress happens is because the thoughts might be against our morals or our values. But a lot of people, I think, when they're talking about it in little like snippets online, they don't necessarily say that. And I feel like it becomes very clear in unfortunate cases when you see, I'm sure that there's, comments on this video saying that's not OCD. Like, you are, you need to go to the police, you need to go to a hospital, you need to whatever. Those people don't know that this is exactly what OCD is, because all they've ever seen is an inaccurate representation of it. So I think, little things like this that are just so raw and so accurate and to the point really are starting to turn the page for people to understand how upsetting and how disruptive, how devastating OCD is for people who have it. So again, I said no notes, but like apparently I had a lot of notes on that one, so go figure. Okay. Another one that I'm kind of like, listen, again, don't want to bash anybody that does things like this with their OCD, but I think just to simply put this out there and be like, oh, it comes off more as like, oh, this is my quirky personality trait, then this is a thing that is like ruining my life type thing, which like they're vastly on different spectrums of experience there. So yeah, again, I know that OCD can look like that for some people, but I wish people would start putting that little star there and saying, how distressing it was or something, so that we're knowing that it's like that you're not feeding into that misrepresentation of what OCD is, and therefore furthering that misunderstanding of the intensity of the disorder, right?
Therapy is not gonna help you get rid of your thoughts. And the more you try to do that, the more you'll have, and the more distressed you'll get.
So I'm always gonna have them.
I know you're looking for a definitive answer.
I am going to get better though.
I'm sorry, I can't give you that.
This is a clip from a movie that I've seen before, and I think that this is a very hard truth for a lot of people that are suffering with OCD, is that they think that treatment, the point of treatment they misunderstand, is to get the thoughts to stop, like to get them to go away, that you're going to cure yourself. And I would be very wary of anybody that tries to sell you a cure, because this is not something that you cure, this is something that you manage. And I know when when OCD was really controlling my life, hearing that was devastating. It was like, well, what's the point if I'm never going to get better? If it's never going to go away, if whatever. You can't look at it with an all or nothing lens, which I know a lot of us with OCD tend to want to do with most things. We have, this very like all or nothing thinking. You learn to go about your life as anybody else would with those thoughts, and you realize over time that, wait a minute, this isn't distressing anymore. This doesn't like bother me anymore, because in reality, everybody has intrusive thoughts. It's just that you are getting hung up on them. That's what the disorder part of it is that you're getting hung up and you're doing these compulsions to try and fix it or undo it or prevent something awful from happening or protect yourself and your loved ones or whatever those things are. Through time and through work with therapy and exposure and response prevention, you just see, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't bother me anymore. Like literally one day you'll wake up and you're like, wait, I feel better. So and I will attest to that till my dying day, that, I thought that I would not be able to go on living anymore, and I still have so much life to live, and I've lived so much life since I thought I couldn't live anymore. Although it's very disheartening, I know, when you're suffering, to hear that there isn't just like one thing that you can do really quick to make it better. It's not like there's something you can put a band-aid on, something like that. Living a normal life is entirely possible, and it's reachable, and it's within your grasp by doing these things. So on that note, if OCD is something that you're struggling with and you're really having a tough time right now and you're just having a hard time seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, know that there is hope and there are steps that you can take literally starting right now to start to feel better. And one of those steps would be to go to NOCD.com or treatmyocd.com. You can do that right now and they will set you up with a therapist that is certified for helping people with OCD, and that is the path to wellness. That is the path to living a normal life. That is the path to starting to get back to feeling like yourself, because I totally, on a very personal level, understand why that is so important and why that seems so difficult, but just know that there are people there that can help you. And with all of that stuff being said, I'm gonna get going, so I will see you guys later. Bye!